watching video of La Follette and Ortley and Seaside. There are homes in the middle of Route 35. So, off of their foundations. The amusement pier at Seaside Park, the Bogflume and the roller coaster in the ocean. No, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
We're driving Route 37 into Seaside Heights, Seaside Park. So for the last 3 weeks, it's been backed up here for miles, coming in between workers, contractors, bulldozers, state troopers, Secret Service. I mean, it's been an unusual 3 weeks. They're trying to file us down into one lane, and then we're going to single file go over the bridge. And of course, you're not allowed over the bridge during the night because there's no electricity on the island. So this is an 8 to 3 o'clock deal. 3 o'clock, you're out of there. There's so many houses that we're getting ripped off. Our first thing is the hurricane goes by, we want to be the first ones in the water. That's the other side of this coin, And none of us have surfed now in 3 weeks, so it's a little eerie, And the main thing, the main draw for us, the pier, is collapsed. And even if we wanted to surf the pier, we have this roller coaster that's in the water right at the break.
Right now, surfing's popular, and when we were young, it was the opposite. If you surfed, you didn't want to work, you were a bum, and whatever else they...
Subculture.
Yeah. Now I'm glad that we went through with the change, and the next generation doesn't have to...
That's a good point, because I think a lot of people don't realize, I think nowadays they take it like it's a family sport and it's a family act. When I walked through an airport with a surfboard, it was like I was the Hells Angels.
Yes,
I mean, it was like, mothers would take their children and run to the other side of the airport.
But we were bad boys, we were bums. Every time I crossed that pier, these guys would say to me, "You're still doing this? Are you still going to do this?"
You had long hair and you surfed, you were a danger to society.
Good to be a rebel.
I grew up originally in a North Jersey town, and there was like almost no hope being there. If I didn't have that surfing, that changeover in life, I'm pretty sure I would have went off the deep end, I think that the whole physical thing and the connection of surfing kept me where I needed to be. It's kept me alive and healthy. I would not be alive today, without a doubt, if I didn't surf.
Surfing in the 50s and then into the 60s, it was still a subculture, completely different than today, completely different. You had all kinds of characters, criminals, wild characters. And it was bohemian, it was rebellious, it was a full-on subculture. I kind of liked it back then. It was cool.
Nothing was a big deal back then. Statehood was the first big deal in Hawaii, 1959. But surfing was just something that people did in the waves down at the beach. And there wasn't anything, the seriousness that you experience in surfing today.
Surfing didn't really kick in until 1959 when they came out with the Gidget movie, and the whole country saw surfing and these guys hanging out in the back of their cars and having parties and chasing chicks, and you know, it was a pretty glamorous kind of thing, and everybody's like, hey, I could buy into that lifestyle. I was thinking the same thing myself. I was going, hey, this is cool. You know, where's the parties and chicks? All I knew was it was cold water and no wetsuits and big heavy boards, and you know, it looked real good in the movie.
On the coast of New Jersey are some of the finest beaches to be found anywhere in the world. Here, on a narrow neck of land, nestled between the Atlantic Ocean and the quiet waters of Barnegat Bay, is Seaside Heights, the town that fun built.
I was born and raised here in '51, and our whole lifestyle was a beach lifestyle. You know, in '51 there was no people here. I mean, it was, you know, there was like 2 bungalows on a block. Everybody fished. It was all fishermen. It was all carpenters. The winters were tough. Most of the original natives didn't have a lot of money. Everybody lived off the bay and the ocean. The islanders were the islanders, you know, and you didn't even leave the island much. You know, you'd go over to the mainland once every couple weeks.
When we grew up, there was very few people around. The school I went to, there was only 7 other people in my class. In the summertime, it was a very, very busy place, but as soon as the Labor Day came, it was empty. So there wasn't much action when it came to neighbors and friends and kids. So it was my brother and I, really, that we entertained each other. And we lived at the beach. Our house was on the beach, so we didn't have to go far to go to the beach.
My playground was the pier. We would go underneath there and build forts out on the pilings, you know. We would find money underneath the pier to survive, sifting sand from all the wheels of chance on top. So that was my little playground.
You just grew up on a beach and you used your imagination, and you did everything with the ocean, you know, everything you could do. And so surfing just, you know, came naturally.
When we were very young, I was 7, 8 years old, my dad bought us mats. These were blow-up inflatable mats. They were canvas with rubber edges, and we learned to actually kneel on them and then stand up on 1 foot on them and surf them that way. That was really our introduction, and we thought, wow, what a great you know, you go from a mat to a surfboard. That was all we thought about once we saw them, that there was such a thing outside of a mat, there was a surfboard.
I started surfing when I was 10 years old. I remember distinctly walking out on Manhattan Beach Pier and seeing guys. I didn't even know what there was surfing. I saw guys riding surfboards along, looking straight down from the pier, and went, that just looks like the coolest thing in the world. They're walking on water.
I think it's Einstein who said that if you were to somehow be able to exceed the speed of light. If you were to get on a spaceship and you and I are standing here together, and I get on a spaceship and I can exceed the speed of light, that I can come back younger than when I left. So I theorized that the illusion of speed is so great, and this state of mind is so intense, if you will, that you change chemically, you change psychologically, thus you're changed physically, and I do believe that you come out younger than when you entered. So that's surfing.
We were paddling out, and the water was coming over our head, and the seagulls are coming down riding the waves, and you see this crisp wave coming at you, and you go to paddle into it. I mean, that feeling is what we all got addicted to. I mean, immediately addicted.
That release.
It was just
because you never experienced anything before.
Never experienced anything like that.
When you're paddling for a wave, all of a sudden the wave takes you.
That's right. It takes you up, lifts you up.
That's the moment.
That's the moment that we got addicted
when
to.
you actually were lifted up and you're going.
And then you're something like you're out of control.
Right.
You're doing this. You're in control.
Yeah,
all of a sudden, you're out of control.
I remember the first time that I caught a wave, and I stood up. Maybe it was only for a second, but for some reason it seemed like it lasted forever. And I'd never felt a feeling like that before in my life. I was flying, and I was going. I literally was ecstatic. I mean, this was like I've never ever felt anything so incredible in my life. I mean, it was like I was flying across the water, and it was like electricity went through me, and it was, I knew from that moment on, this is the only thing that I ever wanted to do.
I think every surfer remembers that first wave, that first moment of gliding along, this uplifting feeling. It's really almost a spiritual experience.
The first time I actually stood up and felt the wind, like rushing in, seeing the the whole panoramic view of the coming, and the speed of the whole thing, I was like, this is really cool. I want to do this again.
Well, I think surfing takes hold of you. It either does or it doesn't. I remember how difficult it was. I remember how long it took me. But it didn't matter, because if it takes hold of you, you just do it. You just do it, and you just do it.
I say there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of prep, there's a lot of pre-surf, but once you get in the water, all bets are off, because it's so dynamic that it becomes a state of non-think almost. And I mean, those are the great days that you have, and that state of mind is addictive.
I think we all get that first time you stand up, and certainly I still remember that wave. I mean, I still remember that moment when I became a surfer. There's that one moment when you're not, and then you are.
Bus would come up. We'd be watching as we crossed the bridge. We'd be watching to see how the weather was, how the wind was, what the wind direction was, how strong it was. By the time we got to our block, we were sprinting up the street to get in the ocean. So, because in the wintertime, you maybe had an hour to get your suit on, get down to the beach, catch 6 waves, get home, and it was dark. So it was everything. We just could not wait to get in the water.
First new board I bought was from. I went to Long Beach Island. I remember it because I really like this 9-1, but I go, I'm 80 pounds. It's not going to float me. I had to get a 9-3.
And now you can use it as a stand-up paddleboard.
Started surfing by my brother.
buying his first 10-foot con, waiting with bated breath to get my turn to go out on it. And that's the way early ownership of surfboards was. Your friend had to have one, then you bust your parents enough, and then you make enough money, save enough, and then daddy buys half and you buy half, and you got your first surfboard, and you're like, whoa!
My first board, we bought at Charlie Keller's. It was a 9.6, and we treated it as if it was everything in the world to us. We put it to bed every night. We put a pillow under its fin and put a blanket over top of it, and we didn't let anybody come and touch it. My father wasn't even allowed to move it. It was in the garage. It was placed in the garage, in the middle of the garage, so you couldn't do anything else around it because we didn't want it to touch anything.
We were extremely young. We were innocent. We were very, very innocent. We had no idea where we were headed. There was no plan, okay? I look at the primitive boards that we were riding, the primitive wetsuits, the wetsuits that were so thick, quarter-inch dive suits.
The only way to keep the water in and out, from going in and out, was masking tape. So we would use a roll of masking tape every single time we went out on our wrists and on our ankles to keep the water from going in.
And we surfed in those.
And the water just literally just swished in.
You got a bloody rash around
Oh, you had an O-ring. Which we
No nylon in
Oh,
it.
my God. But you see, the thing about back then, the rashes, they were like scars because the bigger your O-ring or the bigger my knot was the badge of courage. So you're paddling out in frigid water. I mean, you got a headache, your head's pounding, you're gasping for air, you're getting beat down.
There was a definite distinction between a person who stayed there and surfed for the winter time and a person who came back and picked up the board again. There was a mark of distinction between those two.
Summertime fair weather surfers were very different, and we kind of treated them that way too. I'm not saying that in a proud way. I'm saying that it just was. There was the hardcore guys, and then there would be the wannabes or the guys that came down in the summer.
I would go to Hermosa Beach and Manhattan. They were close to my house, closest spot. But I was never accepted by those people because I was called an inlander, a valley cowboy or something. So they had a tight clique, and I wanted to be in that clique really bad. They all went to Maricosta High School. That was the surfing school. So they would take my car and push it out in the sand and push it over upside down, literally. So, probably the more they punished me, the harder I worked. It's kind of one of those deals that probably worked that way. Because I didn't think of it as work. But I just wanted to surf. That's all I knew what I wanted to do.
There was a group in Seaside Park. Then there was a group in Seaside Heights.
There was the Pier crew, the Orly crew, the South, the Normandy Beach crew.
I'm going beyond before the Pier because none of us paddled up to the Pier at first. We were afraid of the Pier. We didn't have leashes, so we surfed in front of our house.
But there were still those, like you said, very provincial.
If you surfed at Ortley Beach, you didn't even surf at Seaside. I
never knew those guys.
And they're only a mile apart.
That's
it's like a mile apart. Any projection into the ocean will create a wave. I mean, anything that projects into the ocean automatically creates a wave. So, the pier was our projection.
There were 4 waves at the pier, 4 waves, 2 on the north side and 2 on the south side. It was shaped like a U, so there were 2 piers with nothing in the middle. When that was a U shape, there was definitely rights and lefts. We weren't allowed up against the pier up within 200 feet because it was some type of weird fishing code, But eventually that was broken. And then we got really close to the pier, and then we started surfing in front of the pier. So where we were back 200 feet, then we got close to the pier, now we're surfing in front of the pier, now we're surfing through the pier.
Everything was very provincial. Even in the town, Seaside Park, Seaside Heights, Ortley Beach, the crew, your buddies, you would be tight in that town, and the other town would be like your rival. The Pier was definitely the Seaside Heights guy, you know, Chris Masenko, Greg Masenko.
Masenko's, you know, live on top of the world, I think, at the Pier. Greg stamped his domain from the beginning, and Greg, you know, made it be known and I think through Chris, you know, the Pier was their domain.
The Pier happened to be the mecca for waves. We just happened to be in the right spot. That was pure luck. That all the good waves would migrate to the Pier, and the bars were perfect on both sides of the Pier. So it was just a quick walk. We would get up, we'd get into the house, I could look out the window, I could check it and know how big it was, where it was breaking, south side, north side, and we'd be off.
And when I grew up surfing in the late 50s, early 60s, the best surfer in the water pretty much ran the show. I mean, everybody not only respected him for being the best, but also for keeping order in the lineup. He knew everything that was going on. He was watching you more than you were watching him. You know, he was seeing everybody out there, and if he felt that you had shown the proper respect, you know, and humility, then instead of screaming at you for being in the way, he might give you a kind word of wisdom, or maybe even better yet, tell you a little story, you know, to illustrate a point. And that was how the whole culture of surfing was passed down.
People from outside of town started coming and surfing at the Pier. And what started out as a group of 12 or 13, it started, you know, on the weekends there'd be more guys, and in the summer there'd be a lot more guys, and so it got quite competitive then.
You start out in a virgin area, you know, an area that's unpopulated, and there's very few people. That territorialism doesn't come into until your area starts getting taken over with.
There was an absolute pecking order at the Pier. There was a hierarchy, but it didn't have to do with age. It kind of had to do with how good you were and your status within that group.
It is definitely a group. It's just like playing basketball. You know, are you going to be allowed to play with the good guys? The stuff happens in surfing the same way. I think you're allowed. You know, that's where you go to the next step. Then you're allowed to go to the Pier, and you're allowed to surf at the Pier if you're able to make the grade.
Every break everywhere has their enforcers. They have the guys that are a little more aggressive and want to protect their turf.
I think we just were lucky that we had a very competitive group.
We did.
That we grew up with that pushed us.
And we're in the water every day.
I think you pushed us. I mean, it was the type of thing where, like, you came to the Pier, and if you didn't make the grade, you know, beat it, and you had to step up to bat. You were either good or you had to be told to leave. They were either allowed in or they weren't allowed in. You know, and that was the whole thing about the Pier. People were scared of the Pier even to this day.
Absolutely, they are.
Because of him. I mean,
because of him.
Seriously. I mean, honestly. There wasn't anybody who was worse in the water than Chris. I swear to this day that there's people that fear the Pier because of him. You would paddle out in the water and he would go, "Who the fuck are you? And why do you think you're allowed to even fucking be here?" And he would like look straight in your face. And you would have to prove to yourself, and he would harass you to death.
When it was a good day and you had maybe an 8-hour period of good waves, there's so many waves in that. So a guy goes out in the water and now he's at the peak and he doesn't catch a wave. Well, that's it. You know, he paddles for a wave and doesn't catch a wave.
Right, yeah.
As far as I'm concerned,
Well,
you're at the wrong place.
You give him 2 times
That's
if he goes
it.
over the falls.
I mean, there's not enough waves to go around. So if you're going to go out there and you're not going to catch the waves, you're going to, you know, paddle for waves and not catch them. Unridden waves going by, I don't have any patience for that.
In the 70s was really when the pier was on fire. Surfing was just exploding at the time. Everybody was just quitting school, hanging out at the pier. We had bonfires going on at the pier. So it was like, that was a spot that you would go to every single day. We had this ride called the Himalaya, and they had these giant speakers. So they were blasting music into the water. So we were surfing with the rock and roll.
That was a time when hippiedom came into effect. You know, then we had everything. I mean, we were free spirits at that time, but we became freer spirits.
So we would surf the pier, we'd sit on the steps, hang out on the beach, and it was an all-day, all-night event.
They were reserved bleachers. They were as localized and as territorial as the break, as the pier. That's when the pier started to get, pretty heavy, started to get pretty well known, and as one of the premier breaks on the East Coast.
Oh, well, then Fran Moran came along too. I mean, Fran Moran was, after that, I mean, then it was Fran Moran. Then Fran Moran ruled the place.
This guy right here, Fran Moran right here, this guy right here.
Fran was the first one to really, I think, take on the whole role, the long-haired, blonde, shortboard surfer god. But he was a tough cookie.
Franny would address the crowd at the pier, and he was fearless, and he was an Irishman, he was a fighter.
He was ahead of us in some respects when it came to drug, sex, and rock and roll. Let's put it in that vein, okay?
He was a drug addict, but his soul was so beautiful. He was his heart was really, he was a real sweet guy. I really miss him.
He was the Mickey Dore of the East Coast. He's gone, he's dead. He passed away in Mexico.
I mean, there's people that didn't give up the drugs. And that's one of the consequences of our era. We got brought in on the gentle side of sex, drugs, and rock and roll that became a much harder, deeper, darker side that took quite a few of the people from that era.
I think that one who brought on competition law was probably Simo. Because if you didn't stand up to his standards and he heard about you, you were either a geek, you were a shit, or whatever. You had to be, you had to be rateable. Otherwise, you were ripped, you were thrown out the door, and whatever.
All guys in all the towns and all the breaks have their crew, and surfing attracts eccentric, unusual people, real characters.
Simo's was the gangster surf shop. I mean, you would walk into the place and the back room would be filled with smoke. You would smell resin, and then there would be a puff of smoke, and Simo would appear out of the back, covered in foam dust and smoking a joint.
If you went into Simo's surf shop, you went in that surf shop and there was like bayonets sticking in the fucking wall.
Something about surfing brought the extreme out of us all. Do things that you just drop your mouth and say, what? You know, how can you talk to somebody who walks into your shop and tell them to get the fuck out?
He really didn't care about, like, you know, he certainly didn't appease or you know, kiss anybody's ass or try to make a sale.
He started the surf teams in New Jersey. You know, he was willing to pay guys to ride around on his surfboard. It was cool to be a surfer at that time and surf for Custom Surf Shop.
He didn't even surf, and he had a huge impact on the surfing around here. He's a big part of surf lore around here.
I think if you had a focalized shop that had good surfboards in it, and the stories that happened within the shop, the momentum where we'd go in and tell surf stories, I think that helped the surfing. Because I know when I opened up my store, it helped our area. It helps when you have a shop that everybody's going and feeding on.
It was a surf shop in Seaside Park called South Island Surf Shop, and we bought it for $12,000. So I walked in with nothing. I mean, I didn't even own a car. I was walking to work, and I was so happy because it was my own store. It was like a clubhouse. So whether you came from a family where maybe your father was never there, or you had a broken home, there was a lot of people that would come to the store for security, for a place to hang out, to become part of whatever we were doing.
Surfers were kind of outside the norm, outside the mainstream, and we were looked at as something less than athletes, something less than whatever. It was good to go to a surf shop because there you found surfers.
There is a time, a moment in your life when everything does revolve around a surf shop and a person in it, because it's the stepping stone.
Those important growing years, you grow away from mom and dad, and you don't want to take out the garbage, but you want to be with the guys at the surf shop. So that's your total social network.
When I graduated from high school, you stand up in front of the class, English Lit class, and you tell everybody what you're going to do. And one guy was going to take over his father's welding business, and somebody else was going to get married. That was a popular thing to do when you're 18 then. And they all had a plan. They were going to college. Everybody had their plan, you know. They had to have a plan. And I just said, I'm going to live on the beach at Malibu and collect Coke bottles enough to eat and surf every day. And the whole class started laughing. The lady grabbed me by the ear and took me outside. She says, "What are you trying to do, disrupting a class like that?" And I said, "I'm serious." And she looked at me and said, "You are serious, aren't you?" I said, she goes, "You poor boy." And she felt sorry for me. I was going to be a real failure.
I remember telling my dad I'm going to be a professional surfer, and he said, "How are you going to do that? There isn't such a thing as a professional surfer." "I don't know, but I'll find a way."
No, I had no clue that surfing would ever be a big part of my life. Because back then surfing was, it wasn't possible to create any form of career out of surfing unless you wanted to be a surfboard shaper.
In those days, nobody was thinking about surfing really as a business. You know, where surfing was a pursuit, it was a lifestyle, and in those days all of us were just trying to surf as long as we could without having to get a real job.
Nobody had jobs. You know, I mean, if you had a job, a regular job, then you weren't there when the surf was good. You know, you were working, and none of us wanted to miss any surf, so mostly you didn't have any money.
The first contest I ever gave money was $1,000 for the 1967 Duke contest. Very prestigious contest. A big wave at Sunset, and probably the most prestigious contest I won. Well, the first year they gave $1,000 cash prize. We're going to call this a professional contest. I won that.
I was working in the surfboard factory preparing blanks for the shapers to shape them. And one night I cut my arm really bad with a power planer, and Hobie, the surfboard company that I was working for, Hobie decided that it was really better for me to surf all the time and not have sharp objects in my hand. So he put me on salary to surf, to do nothing but surf. All of a sudden I was getting a salary to surf, and I had a paid sponsor, and all my expenses to go to surf contests, go to Hawaii and travel were all picked up. So I became a professional surfer.
Memorial Day, you can't even drive around, and Labor Day, the tumbleweeds are blowing down the roads.
We went from this craziness of the summer, and then back to nothingness again on Labor Day, and it was a sadness to it. I remember it being sad that everybody was gone, but it was back to us again, which was pretty cool, because now it's all my real friends and the guys at the pier again.
That last week of the summer, you can feel that the brakes go on, and then, poof, it's gone. And there's always been that melancholia that sits in, because life changed. I mean, you got the whole excitement of the summer, doing all kinds of things, and you know that school is coming or it's on, and life changes every time, and people are gone, so you lose that connectivity. Although you do have that hope that you're going to get the hurricane season and it's swell and a good September.
A nor'easter is a northern Atlantic hurricane. We love them because it gives us great surf. It was something that we would look forward to. Storm season in the North Atlantic starts to happen on Labor Day. Growing up on the beach, you come to realize that Labor Day, in and of itself, 9 times out of 10, is actually the beginning of the big surf. And the joy of it comes from, that every single one of these people that are living in this town are going to have to leave, and all of this stuff is for you, and this is the biggest treat that you're going to have. And you knew that was the beginning of your season. It was your season. And you watched the storms, and you plotted them. In the beginning, we didn't have the Weather Channel. We didn't have those things. You felt it. You knew it. You heard it. You sensed that it was coming. And you saw that it was coming. Things would start to change. You'd see the quietness in the ocean. You'd feel it in the wind, in the air, and you just sort of sensed that something's out there. And you knew that, you'd hear some of the reports. You'd hear it from North Carolina. It was starting to get something. And you sit there and go, okay, something's coming.
Remember that time that I got swept into the pier and you came in and saved me? When my board went up in between the two pilings like this.
You were on your leash.
I was on my fish, and I had one of Chris's leashes that you had no Velcro, so you couldn't undo it. And I'm laying there holding onto the piling, and I don't know what to do because I can't get my leash off because it was leather leash, and you had to put. And you paddled in and saved me. That was a rough day. That was a scary
I remember
day.
that was.
We were surfing in front of the pier at about 8 foot.
In 1976, I was standing on the beach at Sunset in Hawaii, Sunset Beach, which was the ultimate arena for big wave surfing. So this huge car pulls up and all these people jump out. And when I say their skin is white, they are luminous white. So I've been in Hawaii the whole winter and we're all tanned and we're all... And like these white dudes jump out of this car and they start talking 1,000 miles an hour and just loud New Jersey style. I'm going, who the hell are these guys? And they got boards with them. I'm going, who are these guys? And it's the whole Greg Misanko and his whole crew.
When we got there, the first thing I did was I went to a phone book and I looked up like Barry Cananapuni's number or Gerry Lopez, and I told Chris, like, look, they're in the phone book. It was like exciting.
We didn't know where anything was. It was a pretty scary thing. You know, when you're a surfer, you're supposed to know these kind of things. But Julie was with us, so we made Julie go out and ask. So we would pull up to a break, and Julie would go out and say, what break is this? And, oh, this is, you know, Chun's Reef. Okay, that's not Pipeline. And then we would drive a little further and we stop and Julie would run out. And we kept going to breaks until we knew them all. And we were really embarrassed to ask. You don't walk up to somebody and says, is this the Bonsai Pipeline?
My first trip to Hawaii was in 1954. I wrote my mom a note, dear Mom, going to Hawaii, love Mickey, P.S. I will write. And I went on a one-way ticket with $6 in my pocket when I landed.
We get some big waves in California, but not with the power of Hawaii. It was over the top for me. I mean, it was powerful, and I like big waves, but it was, you know, frightening.
I don't think there's any one of us that hasn't faced death. A moment where you thought, I ain't gonna come up.
Well, you're praying to God.
You're sitting there and you're underwater and you're going, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. You're underwater and you're going, this might be it.
That's right.
Anybody tell you that if they weren't scared would be lying to you. It's very scary. The scary part for me was the volume of water that was moving at Sunset Beach when we first paddled out, or Haleiwa, or you know, Jocko's, or it's the volume of water, the immensity of it, and the speed at which it's moving.
I always felt like the guy that could die, but you know, that was just in my mindset. I was going to do it all. I was going to take off on everything. I knew that, but I didn't feel that confident that that I couldn't drown. Never. Every time I went, oh no, here it goes again.
Everybody gets that. There's moments, you know, where you go, uh-oh, here comes all of the ocean on me. We're gonna die. Yeah, I think I've been there millions of times going, okay, never coming up for air, see ya.
You know, I look back later on, it was one of the great lessons in my life because, you know, I came back, went to school back here, and, you know, again, being a little person and not being in the major sports in school and everything, I came back pretty tall. You know, I felt like, you know what, you know, riding the North Shore was a big deal, and riding big waves was you know, pretty ballsy, pretty good, and I'm about as tall as the rest of these people, right? So that was a big deal for me.
And I think the best waves that you ever have are the ones you don't think you're gonna make. Right. But the good waves you have are like that. So I pull in a sparrow and then I come out and then I see another section. Now the first section I didn't think I was gonna make. The second section I knew I wasn't gonna make. And then I made it, you know. So that's I remember that.
You know, we always knew, because there was a lot of really good surfers coming from the East Coast, that there were more surfers on the East Coast of America than there were on the West Coast. And there always has been. And really the East Coast was the reason that the surfing industry got going in the early 60s. I started a relationship with Hobie Surfboards to build my Lightning Bolt boards and sell them on the East Coast.
We'd drive up down the whole, we'd go through Texas and Florida and all the way up north and back down again and see everybody. And we'd have a parties, and then next week Dewey Weber would come through and they'd all buy Dewey Weber boards.
You would start from Florida, drive all the way up the coast and hit all the surf shops. And finally we got to New Jersey, and that's how I ran in the grot.
Then he decided to have this pro contest in New Jersey. And us guys are going, New Jersey, how is it possible to have a pro? I mean, I think most of the surfers in the world never knew anything about New Jersey. They thought it was maybe a suburb or a state that was part of England.
On the East Coast, I had the first pro contest. Pro contest, what I mean by is that we actually gave away real cash. And of course, we had it at the Pier, and before you know it, it became the APS tour. It was part of the same tour that's going on now with Kelly Slater and all those guys.
Yeah, surf right next to that boardwalk. I didn't know you had to pay to get on the beach. That was weird. You know, they tell you can't get on the beach unless you have a little badge. You know, I go, what?
Like you go down there and surf at Seaside in the morning, and then they'd kick you off the beach. You had to get off the beach like at 8, and the beach was fenced off. You'd have to get off the beach, and then you'd have to go back and you'd have to pay to get back onto the beach to compete. It was like blew our minds.
With all those guys arriving in town, they came to the store. All the tourists would show up, they want their autographs, and that's how the store started to become this central focus point. We had the pier, we had the shop, and we had the surfers, and it all just meshed together, and it became this evolution.
Before Grog, it was something like Harry Goldstein, and he'd sell surfboards in a gun shop. The guy sold canoes and hunting gear, and surfboards are sporting goods, so I'll have a couple. Grog was really like a real surf shop that started carrying surfboards, wetsuits, the whole enchilada, trunks, and really knew how to market. I'd call him one of the first marketing real geniuses in the surfing industry.
He was the guy that broke it out from the beach into fashion, without a doubt. And he was the guy that merchandised it in a way that a company like Hollister today is a $1.6 billion company based on what I think Greg laid down with Grog Surf Palace, you know, so many years ago. He was a guy with amazing talent and incredible vision.
I think it's important for everybody that comes in here to know some of the history, where we all started from. I think it's all needs to be known. And all the accessories, from sandals to coats, it's all right here. And it's all started from just one board short many years ago. That's how it all started. One board short, one surfboard, and maybe a wetsuit. And now, look at this place.
I can do yoga on this board. I can do headstand on this board. We did it because we loved it. It was exciting, it was challenging, it was stimulating, it was everything. It was our life. Had we known it was going to grow this big, we'd be millionaires.
I think the industry just evolved, and I think that it was driven not out of a desire to grow business, but just out of the growth of surfing, because it's such an amazing thing to do.
Became aware as I grew older that I preferred nature to society. You know, I preferred the freedom of being in the ocean to the laws and the rules on land. You're out in that ocean and it's free, you know, and back on land, rules, restrictions, laws, you know, judges, teachers, priests. There's none of that in the ocean. It's really totally pure, you know, totally real. Back on land, it's fabrication, illusion, man-made. You know, out there, it's pure. You know, it's as pure as you can get.
I found work so I could surf. And I found whatever I could do so I could surf. So actually, my entire work life has been shaped so I could surf. So I was able to find work where I could work for 4 months a year and surf for 8 months a year. So it really directed my entire life. I wanted to work, to make money, to go surf.
Surfing it's a lifelong story then. You know, it's not just going to go away, you know, which is evident in all of us. The choices we make on our lifestyles after that become more individualized, you know, on what we can sustain ourselves with in order to surf.
In the pecking order, you still got to make a living, and then you have a wife and you want a relationship, and you have children, and they really come before anything. So for about 15 years, it was difficult to get in the water and travel like I wanted to.
I think that you get married, you get responsibilities, and kids come along, and so it never leaves you. You're always doing it. It's what you want to do, but you sometimes don't grab the board and you pick up the hammer and you go to work. And sometimes you do pick up the board and you don't go to work, and you pay for that in the end.
We have been abused and yelled at and screamed at because we've missed many a Thanksgiving dinner, many a Christmas dinner, many an occasion, and we've chosen the waves over that, over family sometimes, which I'm not proud of saying, but it's happened.
But that's what it does, you know, that's what it does to you, you know. He sneaks away, everybody does, they sneak away from everything, as you know, you sneak away from in-laws, relatives, your girlfriends, you know, and your job, and you'll want to get in that ocean because it gives you that feeling.
I really wasn't that familiar with the surf life what it was all about, it causes some problems in the beginning, you know? He would be like, there's a surf, I gotta go, and I'd be like, no, you're not, no, we have this plan.
I think my surfing went through an evolution, and that it would have been impossible for me to have the relationship I have with my wife Toni and my son Alex now when I was 20 years old. I mean, it wouldn't have happened. It just couldn't have happened because I was, you know, too lost in the whole surf deal.
I was very single-minded, and a lot of my friends through my whole life have always said that it's a curse and a blessing because I can focus on one thing completely intently at the expense of everything around, and I don't pay attention to anything else. It's just that. And when I was coming up as a surfer, that's all I did.
I told him one morning, don't go surf, stay with me. And he turned around and he looked at me very serious. Never told me don't go surf again. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So what I do now is, if I organize my day, it's after 12. Because I know that before that, he's surfing.
Coming out of the water, and he was going in, and my ex-boyfriend at the time says, Annie, do you want to meet a legend? And I said, well, I thought you had to be dead to be a legend, because I never heard the word legend before in surfing.
In my earlier relationships, it was more difficult because they just didn't surf. There were very few girl surfers. We do everything together now too. We go surfing together right down in front of the house, and as we go surfing in California, we go to Hawaii. So it's nice to be with your companion and doing it together.
I learned pretty clearly from the beginning that you make this very clear. I love you, you know. We're partners, but surfing almost comes first. So you make it clear, and of course, most women think they can change that situation, and the ones that do, or try to, you know, usually the relationship doesn't work out.
As surfers, a lot of us just see the experience differently. I mean, I love it. I love surfing. I never let it get to the stage where it would destroy my life. But a lot of surfers, and that's all they want to do, and everything else, family, career, they just want to chase that perfect wave. I don't think you're ever going to find that wave, you know what I mean? You can chase and chase and chase, and you can look over the horizon all you want. Perfect waves in your backyard.
You could surf all over the world, and some of your best memories are always going to be here. And when you have the memories here, it's with all your friends.
You come from New Jersey. There's not many places you can go that people don't surf as heavy waves as we surf. We surf some pretty heavy waves.
But for me, I want to tell you, I found out that we can make good money here and get to go surf all over the world because we can keep coming back here and making good money here. So I can make money and go places, make money and go places.
That's Julian.
Hey, Julian.
That's my grandson.
Cowabunga, dude.
So this is my good friend Corky Carroll. That's my son Tyler over there.
Light winds aloft to counterclockwise flow around that high pressure system. And there we go, right there. There is Miriam. This is strengthening tropical storm Miriam right now. It is a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm, but it's going to be...
Yeah. We're going to get waves, but it's the window that we're going to get them is going to be interesting, and the wind direction is going to be interesting to see.
We've been looking up to you guys at this table for a long time.
Watching those guys surf is what inspired, I think, us to do better. And so when they came on the East Coast and we got to see them surf, it just
showed us how far we had to go.
Pretty much everything works in waves.
Yeah.
Light waves, sound waves,
brain waves,
and brain waves.
The whole universe is a wave.
And so, how lucky we are to be able to dance with waves, which is what we do. So let's go surfing, Kawa fucking Bunga.
I don't mind the ups and downs.
all the people that I know that are surfers are people that somehow, some way understand what nature is. Whether it's, the waves that are coming in, or whether it's the birds that are coming in, whether it's the fish are being fed, all of this keeps revolving. And eventually what dawns on you is that you're part of this.
I realize now what a paradise I grew up in. It just was so much more quiet, so much less populated.
Do I remember when there was vacant land? Yes. I remember when there was vacant sand dunes. I remember when there was vacant property. In the past, we felt that we could control nature. We felt that technology was more powerful. We live on a barrier island. There's a natural movement to the sand that we live on. And we're not accepting that as being something that's a natural process, and we think we can control it. We're just sand on top of gravel. Putting up dikes, dams, and barricades, and thinking that we're going to keep this place the way it is, it's just not going to work.
It was a beautiful, small community. And you lived really simple. It's such a different world now.
I like the fact that we're still sitting here. That's what I like. No, I mean that. I like the fact that surfing is the core that kept us friends. How many other people in life have the same? I know Kevin since he was 13. I know him since he was 14. I know you since you're 14. How many, and we can go on and on, there's lots of us. This is not just this group of 5 that have friends for life and have that central thing. Add to that, Chris, though, but all of us, no matter where we go, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, that group that's in the water, we've all bonding on the same spiritual thing. It's like we're all one big family.
I can remember 5 years ago, we would be getting southeast wind, and literally it would be 90 degrees out and people would be in 3-2 wetsuits because the water would be so cold. Now we're getting south breezes and it's like the water's still 80, it's still like 75 degrees, and this is not a good sign. It's not a good sign at all. Hurricane season comes, this is not going to be good. It's going to come screaming up the coast this time. It's going to freight train itself up and it's going to be a scary situation, boy.
Surfers pay a lot of attention to the weather. We live by the weather, especially on the East Coast here because it has everything to do with, bringing swells. I believe we're interconnected with everything. The earth, the ocean, the water, the rock, each other. We're all powerfully connected. We're like one. I think we're having a huge effect, and I think nature is angry.
All stations. This is the United States Coast Guard. A powerful storm will begin impacting the New England offshore Monday, the 29th of October, into Thursday, the 1st of November. High winds and high seas expected to accompany the storm. Mariners are strongly advised to closely monitor NOAA weather and local radio broadcasts for updated warnings on the storm. This is the United States Coast Guard out.
Sandy hammered the Bahamas early Friday after leaving 21 dead across the Caribbean.
This storm is basically one of the largest we've ever seen in the Atlantic Basin.
This storm system is certainly something that is once in a lifetime.
We declared a state of emergency in anticipation of Hurricane Sandy.
I'm totally convinced that we have changed the course of nature. This thing isn't just a storm coming in. This is a system that's not working right.
You know, you got to remember that this is a sandbar, and we built on a sandbar, and the ocean builds the sandbars up and takes it away. And this is what's going to be going on forever. So for us to think that we're more powerful or we can construct more buildings better than the ocean, we just saw that we can't.
Thought is a very powerful thing. And so our thoughts, our actions, how we affect each other, our bad behavior is affecting everything. Not only how we pollute and waste and mow down nature and just wipe it out. Not only that, even the way we're behaving towards ourselves, that vibration that creates an atmosphere of negativity, and I believe it affects everything. And I believe that it's possibly, quite possibly, has a lot to do with nature being so angry, more angry than I've ever seen it in my life.
Every piece of wood that's in this house, I made with my own hands. I don't think I'll ever be able to have that back again. And I don't know if I'll ever have it back again.
Have 50 years of surfing this spot. All these decades of people hooting and howling and rooting each other on. It's just the magic of that particular spot. For us in New Jersey, this is the magic spot.
Well, the pier was the center focus of our life growing up. It wasn't just the surfing. We grew up there. It was our beach town, like our home away from home.
It's scary because I don't know if it'll ever come back. There's something nostalgic about the old, and just tossing it aside, getting rid of it, you toss something along with that.
Remembering is a very important thing to do in life. And remembering a spirit is what keeps that spirit alive. And remembering the spirit of something, whether it's a person or a place, you're passing it on. Because when you stop remembering it, or it stops getting remembered, it's truly dead. That's our job, to keep those things that we really love alive. So that's why you pass it on.